Hello, I'd like to highlight one more thing for this series on dark mode tips and how to make your emails better with dark mode. So this is a small thing, right? This is a great email overall, and that's why it's interesting to show this. Like I don't want to necessarily show very poor quality emails. I like to show emails that there's obviously an effort behind them and a team behind them who knows what they're doing. So, for example, the content is good. The structure of this email is great, and they're using this GIFs, which makes the whole thing more engaging. So, what I want to show here is a dark mode thing. So, and I want to focus on that because I feel like there's a lot of brands in this situation that make really good emails, but then they kind of forget about dark mode, and it shows, right? You can see that they don't necessarily test for dark mode. Um, and so I want to show you first what it looks like in bright mode. So this is what it looks like. It's just a nice email header with a call to action, then some several calls to action. Again, I really like the use of GIFs here. I think this is great. And now let's switch to dark mode and see what happens. Okay, so a couple of things here. The first thing is, first of all, just structurally in general, you can see that this email was built as an HTML template and not with not with images first. So it adjusts better to dark mode. That's one of the advantages of using HTML first emails. You can see here all this text is very easily legible. The buttons look good. The contrast is good. Even all the footer text appears. And so all of that, I mean, maybe the contrast on the footer text is a little bit low, but it's still readable. I'd say on that side, it's doing really well. One easy thing I'd like to highlight is on these images you can see here, these were built and exported and then as a square image, which is the normal way for an image to appear. If they wanted to really make it look nice on dark mode, they could just remove these corners and then export these images, these GIFs, and that would make the whole email look a lot more visually pleasing to users on dark mode. So that's one little thing, right? Is when you're exporting images, to think of the little white elements that will look out of place in an email that is suddenly dark instead of white. So just thinking about that when you're working with images, that thinking about, okay, can I make this transparent? Is there anything here that I need to make transparent? Obviously, also just testing, right? Just send yourself the email, look at it in dark mode, and see if there's anything you might have missed. So, and then here in the header, I think overall it looks good. I mean, there is this little box of black around the header that might look a little bit strange. However, I think it's not bad because it highlights the text. The contrast is good and it doesn't look weird. I think if it went all the way through, it would look strange. This way, it almost looks intentional. So, because the message is delivered clearly, and I personally feel like this is not a visual problem, I would say this is a good thing. If you personally disagree, then obviously feel free to do something about that in your emails, right? This is just something to point out as different elements will change colors. And so depending on personal preference, obviously you can make different decisions here. But yeah, the main thing is that the message gets delivered clearly. There's nothing that looks like it was clearly missed visually. I think that's always the worst thing. The one thing I would point out here in this header is the logo. So this is almost not visible. That's probably the worst thing, is, and something I like to point out because it happens so much. Even with brands, we can clearly tell they've put effort into their email, right? They're using GIFs, they're using a good structure, they've condensed the text to a minimum so that it's very engaging, but then they could have just easily added an outer glow to this logo, and we've shown images or emails where this was done really well. So feel free to check out those videos if you want to see how this can be done very well and get some inspiration. But this is something that I would change simply because it is such an easy one to work. This is something I would definitely always test your logos, especially if you're using reusable headers and footers. This is something you just have to do one time, and then it's done for all your emails in the future, right? It always looks nice. So definitely worth doing that. And I like to point out these logos when I see them because so many brands, even like as you can see, very big brands are having logos that get very difficult to see in dark mode. So yeah, pay attention to the logos as always, and then also think about what elements of your images could be transparent when you're editing images and getting ready to export them for email use.